Okay, we're up and running. I'm with Tim Nash, who's, well, I won't say he's Jersey's expert on China, but he knows quite a bit about China, and he's also a Christian, as I understand. So he's got some interesting perspectives on the relationship between Jersey and China and what's actually going on in China today. You've got a local presence, a local company. What's that called?
I do. I have a company called Access China, which is about helping to make China accessible to English speakers, partly through teaching language, partly through culture training, and partly through sort of hands-on support with particular projects, whether they're marketing, sales, know your customer kind of searches, that kind of stuff. If you go out to China, as you must, and say, hello, I'm a Christian, what do the Chinese say about that? They say, tell me something I don't know. They see a white face and they assume you're a Christian. Because for the Chinese, the West is Christian, despite what we might think of ourselves, and despite things that you might read in the press, that is still the perception. And for the Chinese, the prosperity, the economic prosperity of the West is directly related to its Christian heritage, and therefore the question is not are you a Christian or not, but what do Christians do? And this is a big challenge for the West, because a lot of Westerners are not professing Christians, and therefore a very skewed image of what Christianity is today is being presented to the Chinese. But despite that, the Christian church in China is growing faster than anywhere else in the world. There are more Christians in China than there are in any other country in the world. And it is seen very much as hand in hand with economic development. If you want to develop economically, then you have to look at the countries which develop fastest economically, and they are the post-Reformation countries of Europe and subsequently America. Of course, your presence there partly is due to the fact that there's an office now open for, or I don't say your presence there, but the Jersey has taken an interest in your activities. You've been able to assist with this forming of the Jersey office in China. Yeah. It's rather strange, isn't it? A little place like Jersey could have any impact on a place like China. Is it of any significance there? Do the Chinese see it as significant? That's an interesting question. And as always with China, the answer is yes and no at the same time. Jersey is a speck, as we all know. When you tell people that Jersey has a population of 90,000, people can't quite believe you. Surely you must be joking. 90,000 people isn't a country, that's a football stadium. It's a concert crowd. That's not a nation. That's not much more than a family, So, there is a little bit of that kind of an attitude towards Jersey. On the other hand, Jersey has for centuries punched way, way above its weight, and people do recognise the value, for example, of milk. Milk is seen in China, where the majority of the population had traditionally been lactose intolerant. Milk is seen as Western brain juice, and so milk is massive, massive industry in China. And the fact that such a tiny little speck as Jersey has produced the world's second most numerous dairy cow, it raises lots of questions for people. If they actually hear of Jersey, they want to know about it, because it just doesn't seem to stack up. It seems to be full of contradictions, like China itself. One other thing I think that is, or perhaps the thing that is most interesting potentially to China about Jersey, is not so much Jersey as an end destination, but Jersey as a conduit, Jersey as a channel. And so one of the questions that I heard the Chinese ambassador say to her Chinese entourage at the end of her visit last November was, never mind about Jersey. Jersey is a lovely place, and they have nice potatoes and nice cows and a good finance industry and all the rest of it. But what I really want to know is, if Chinese people come to Jersey, what does that connect them to that they wouldn't otherwise be connected to? And there Jersey has an interesting story. Of course, China's been buying into places like Bermuda. I think they've been buying quite a lot of property there, so you can see that gives them a foothold quite near to America. Yeah. So you can see the value of that, because it's a low-tax centre. And you could see possibly they might do the same somewhere like Jersey, buy substantial real estate and get a foothold here, somewhere handy next to Europe. You can see the sorts of potential. Yeah. But the idea that
cows, I can see that cows can be a real benefit to Chinese people, that help feed them. I can't quite grasp what Jersey can do that's good for China in the financial sense.
Well, I think that Jersey stands out as being a neutral point through which to channel monies to anywhere in the world. There is a huge amount of impetus from the Chinese government to continue to grow their economy through encouraging their business to internationalize. And the moment you start to internationalize, the moment you start to deal with more than your home jurisdiction in terms of legislation and processes and staff and law and so on, then you open up a whole world that you just don't know how to handle. And it's at that point that Jersey can step in and take away a huge amount of pain for people and actually manage these complicated processes on their behalf so that they can focus on the pure business decisions that they're actually best at.
Of course, we hear a lot of criticism about the human rights record in China.
Yeah.
Ironically, Jersey's human rights record is not very grand, not very good at signing up to treaties, so we're certainly not in a position to preach to the Chinese on it. But do you have any unease about trading with a country like China, which obviously has got severe human rights issues?
Yeah, I mean, certainly as a Christian, then, you know, as I see it, Jesus' ministry was very much focused on righting injustice and on justice for the poor especially. And so, especially as a Christian, then I have concern over injustice wherever there is injustice. And undoubtedly there are huge injustices in China. But as you say, there are also huge injustices elsewhere in the world. I read a very interesting article about David Cameron's visit to China recently, and there's a spokeswoman for Amnesty International who said actually Amnesty International's entries in their report on human rights abuses in America is twice as long as that for China. So I think one point is to say none of us are clean here and all of us have a duty to be working to improve. But the other point that I think is worth making is that if we want to see human rights abuses in other people's countries improve, obviously we have to address what's going on in our own backyard. But also, what will make most impact is actually having a relationship with someone. What I say to people very often is that if you think about the people that have most impact on you personally in your life, you're much likely to modify your behavior in response to a friend than you are in a response to an enemy. And therefore, my sense is that the more we actually engage in a relationship with China, on as many levels as possible, the more we have an opportunity to potentially to influence the human rights record. And I think that this is borne out by the recent decade. The fact that China was admitted into the World Trade Organization, the fact that China was awarded the Olympics, the fact that China was able to host the largest international exhibition anywhere in the world, these have had a massive impact on the Chinese psyche, on the Chinese attitude to disabled people, for example, by having Paralympians take over their capital city. It's this kind of interaction with the rest of the world where the impression is received by China that the rest of the world is not trying to put us down, they are actually trying to work with us. That is what makes the biggest difference.